everyone. Last week, we introduced the formal writing process. Now, the assignments that you all have been doing in the last week helped us work through the first and second steps. So let's just do a quick overview. The four primary steps to writing. So our formal writing process includes step one is pre-writing or planning. Step two is drafting. Step three, revising. Step four, editing. All right, so that step one, just as a reminder, pre-writing or planning, that is the thoughts and planning going into our paper. So we're figuring out what we want to write about and how we're going to go about writing about that topic. Activities included brainstorming, free writing, listing, mind mapping, and actually we did free writing last week to help us get started. The second step, drafting. This is where you take that planning and those thoughts and those ideas and you turn them into actual words. Those words become sentences, those sentences become paragraphs, and you can start building the structure of your essay. And we started that last week through our outlining activity. But I want to remind you all structure, because structure is so incredibly important, and it is something that an essay just simply doesn't exist if there's not structure. So we'll use our example that we used last week. Structuring, think of it like a layered cake. First up, we have the first impression. That is telling us what we're about to read, right? So it's our introduction and it is that hook. It's grabbing the audience's attention, pulling them in, making them want to know more. Next, you have the thesis statement. So that is that bit of stability, right? So it's the plate or the stand that the cake is on. That stability, it shows our reader what to expect from your essay. It's holding your essay together there at the beginning. Now, notice I didn't say it tells your reader or your audience what to expect from the essay. A thesis statement is not a simple statement of this is what my paper is about, right? That is not a thesis statement. Instead, a thesis statement shows the reader what the essay is going to be through a well-formed sentence or two that summarizes the paper or the story or whatever it happens to be that the essay is focused in. Now, the layers of your essay, or the layers of that cake, right? That is your body paragraphs. Now, your body paragraphs are where the flavor, the meat, or the details are in your essay. Then we have transitions. Transitions keep the essay flowing. Okay, but they keep the essay also sticking together. They keep that essay making sense. Without those transitions from paragraph to paragraph, and I'm talking body paragraphs here, but without those transitions, the reader would read a body paragraph and then it would feel like it just stopped. And then it would restart again. That's not smooth, that's very disjointed. That's not good use of structure. So we use transitions in between those body paragraphs to help keep everything smooth, logical, and flowing. Next, we have our topic sentences. The topic sentences are those sentences at the beginning of each body paragraph. So again, I'm talking the body here, not introduction, not conclusion, but each body paragraph. And that topic sentence just quickly introduces what's about to happen, right? Again, we're not telling what's going to happen in the paragraph. We're not saying this paragraph is about, but we're showing what happens in that paragraph. We're using the transition from the previous paragraph and we're making things smooth. It's holding it together. And then finally, we have our conclusion. That is that polished ending to our essay. In terms of a narrative, that's the ending of our story that we're recounting. And it's also that paragraph where we want our reader to feel that they learned something or that there was a reason for reading this essay. It wasn't just words on a paper that had no impact. The conclusion is that lasting feeling, and it wraps everything up in a nice package for the reader. Again, we did some outline work last week, practicing our drafting. The outline was the rough start to your essay. It was kind of giving you a visual of your thoughts and your planning. Now, during the drafting, you also continue into a rough draft. And that's where you take your outline, where you have that rough visual of what you were thinking and planning, and you actually turn it into an essay. It starts getting that true essay structure. So you have your introduction, your thesis, full body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Right? This week, we are talking about our step 3. So we have pre-writing, drafting. Step 3, revising. Revising is first and foremost not proofreading. Proofreading is paying attention to your sentence level errors. That's what we call punctuation or grammar, spelling. Is that comma in the right spot? That is proofreading, and that is not what we are doing when we are revising. Revising is where you have a rough draft and you read it from beginning, middle, and end, and you make sure that the essay as a whole says what you intended it to say in the way you intended it to say it. You make sure that your essay as a whole is logical. So, does it make sense to the reader? And you need to remember that you are not writing this essay for yourself. You are writing your essay for someone else to read it and to understand it. So just because the essay makes sense to you does not mean it makes sense to your reader. You are writing to your reader. All right. So in revising, you're going to be looking at things like, does my introduction and the topic that I'm introducing in my introduction and in my thesis still match my ending conclusion? Am I still talking about that same topic? You're also looking at your body paragraphs. Are the body paragraphs, each individual body paragraph, is it supporting that introductory topic? For example, and it's the easiest example I can think of, right? So if you're talking about the day a child was born, if that is the topic you have chosen to write your essay on, when you're looking through your rough draft and you're seeing what needs to be revised, look at those body paragraphs. If your topic is about the day a child is born, do your body paragraphs linger? Do they start talking about baby showers and 9 months prior and leading up to, and everything outside of the day that the child was born? If so, revision is needed, and this is that step to do it. That's when you rein it all in. That's when you narrow your writing to, again, that specific event or that specific topic that you are working on. The other aspect of the revising step is the use of feedback. So, with your rough draft, this is where you start asking for feedback. And by feedback, it is exactly what it sounds like. It is where you present your information or your essay to another reader. That reader reads it and they give you constructive feedback. During the revising step, you're taking that feedback, you're looking at your essay and thinking, okay, this feedback does definitely apply. I can see how my reader is confused or my reader needs more information. And then you act on it, right? So you take that feedback, you apply it, you better your essay, you make your essay stronger. Now, during this step, there's a few quick, easy questions you can ask yourself as you read through your essay. First, who am I writing to and why? Right? And I already kind of touched on this. You're not writing to yourself. You are writing to an audience. You are writing to someone else who is not you. You are writing to someone who will read your writing. And that is so incredibly important because once you really own that and you become aware of that, more details will come through in your writing because something that makes sense to you does not always make sense to someone else. Sometimes there needs to be extra details that you wouldn't normally need because you were there, right? You were there in that event. You don't need to know that it was sunny outside or that it was cold, but maybe your reader does. So you're going to be thinking about what your what your reader needs and writing to that reader. Have I written my story clearly and in a logical way for the reader's best understanding? Again, does your essay make sense? Is it logical? Is it coherent for your reader? Is my point in the beginning still my point in the end? What you start out writing with, what you've introduced as your thesis and in your introduction, are you still writing about that same topic, that same event by the end of your paper? If not, it brings us to that next question. Do all of the paragraphs in the middle discuss the point I am trying to make? More than likely, if your beginning is different from your end topic, there was some sort of new idea or new discussion or new details that were presented in the middle body paragraphs that were not necessary. So make sure beginning, middle to end, it is the same topic and you are not going off and you're not kind of going off on tangents. Have I written a complete narrative with a beginning, middle, and end, and without tangents? All right, so just like I said before, you have a clear start, you have a clear middle, and you have a clear end, and you haven't gone off on any random discussion or any random information that's not completely 100% relevant to the topic or story at hand. Now, specific to beginning, middle, and end, and it's more so the emphasis on the end. You want to make sure, especially in a personal narrative situation where we are recounting a story, right? We're recounting a personal event. We're telling our reader about this. You want to make sure that it actually ends. You don't want to leave your reader sitting there by the end of your conclusion going, well, what happens next? Right? You want a clear, final conclusion ending. All right, so with revision, the biggest, most important aspect of revision is the element of feedback. And feedback can be so intimidating to writers, especially early on in learning the writing process. And sometimes it can feel kind of raw when you get that feedback back after you have worked for hours, if not days, even if possibly weeks on a writing that you feel is very personal and something that you have just really poured your heart out into, or you've shared something, that's personal. Feedback, however, is not personal, and you always need to remember that. What we practice in this class and what you will practice in all writing courses is constructive feedback. That means it is feedback given to your writing. It's not feedback given to you. That is such an important detail to remember and to take with you into every future course that you take and into your workplace. Constructive feedback is about the work at hand. It is not about you personally. So during this revising step, when you are looking at your writing, don't be afraid to apply that feedback. Do not be afraid to really own that feedback and look at it and go, okay, this is right. Maybe I could do a little bit better here, or maybe this section does need to be stronger, or as much as I really think this information is important, my reader just absolutely did not need it, right? So maybe I can remove it and it still be a strong piece. On the flip side though, you don't have to apply every single bit of constructive feedback that you receive. In the end, you are the writer, you are the author. This is your work, this is your piece. And it is at your discretion to apply the feedback. Now, I will say very strongly, when someone who is professionally within the field of whatever work you are writing, and working on, feedback is being given from a professional and knowledgeable standpoint. And I highly recommend taking that feedback and applying it as often as possible.